Nothing excites the political press more than a major upset. And by some accounts, the special election to fill Georgia's 6th congressional seat was shaping up to be one. But if the national media was hoping for a great storyline, voters in the conservative district had other ideas. If there was one headline in the run-up to this week's special election, it was this.
All of this, I think, comes down to 2 words: Donald Trump.
A referendum on the president.
A referendum on the Trump administration.
But it wasn't, as Republican Karen Handel fended off Democrat John Ossoff. So who said it was a referendum? Maybe the rest of the country hoped so with an historic flood of outside money.
Almost $50 million has been spent in the race so far, much of that on TV ads.
But local reporters noted that Ossoff was hardly running as an anti-Trump firebrand.
He's also talking to moderates and conservatives who he hopes will support his message of cutting wasteful spending.
Ossoff himself said voters were more concerned about local issues.
And what they're saying, Ali, is that they want a bipartisan commitment to growing our local economy.
But even with a message that might resonate with conservatives, Ossoff had liabilities that had little to do with national politics.
This is a Republican district. He's never run for office before. He doesn't even live in this district.
In retrospect, it should have been little surprise that voters picked Karen Handel, a credible candidate with deep roots in the community. And here's more food for thought.
If she wins, this will be a demoralizing blow to Democrats who, David, are going to have to rethink their entire strategy.
If the referendum line going in was oversimplified, so is the Democratic disaster storyline coming out. Yeah, this was a made-for-TV movie from the beginning. You got this young millennial guy. He was getting money. He had more money from millennials in California. My daughter actually texted me one day and said she was giving to this guy. I hadn't even heard of him yet. It was like, it was part of the whole narrative of this. But nobody really knew that much about him, that the fact that he didn't live in that district, that he was really a local guy. He was not some, big anti-Trump guy. I mean, this was a wishful thinking from day one.
Yeah, you got to live in the district, first of all.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. This is not after-the-fact quarterbacking by somebody who would have liked to see Trump being dealt a blow. I spent 3 hours with cable news Tuesday night on behalf of WGBH, and I was interested to see that even before the returns came in, Brit Hume of Fox News was saying, this isn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
You could see the polls during the last week starting to slide Karen Handel's way, and that was confirmed Tuesday night. Not that big a deal.
Would know, yeah.
If you have fantasies of Democrats taking back the House, I can see how you would
The
look
media
at
has
this.
fantasies.
Well, not just the media, though. There's a lot of millennials in California and who have fantasies about taking back the House, which is it's a really uphill battle. And so I do fear that sometimes these stories are kind of whipped up or, because this is what people want to hear. This is what they want to hear, that a guy like that has a chance of winning in Georgia.
I think the Trump aspect of it was overstated, but there is actually a pretty long history of the president's party affecting local and congressional or state and congressional elections. And the fact that this was a Republican, a district where the Republican last time won by something like 20 points and the Democrat in this case only barely lost, I think does speak to some degree to Trump's popularity and the turmoil of the National Republican Party.
So it is a referendum.
But it also, it just wasn't enough of a factor for Ossoff to overcome these other liabilities that he had. In most stories, like in life, most stories are fairly complex, and this was partly a referendum on Trump, partly based on local factors, and it came out in a way that the Republican narrowly won.
I would say that there was a stealth factor with the Trump referendum, meaning that definitely both of them, for the most part, really stuck with what the issues were in their community. However, remember, this was now the 3rd or 4th special election in which there had been the attempt to take over, and Trump is this is the referendum on Trump. So everybody's revved up and ready to put that forward as the defining moment in this campaign. And nobody looked to see, well, what are the other factors? From the beginning, Ossoff really was not going for pushing me into the corner. He wouldn't talk about it. In fact, he's being criticized for not stepping up to say that. He talked about the local issues in the area. And she, I'm looking at thinking about something that she said on the air, which then make me think it's a little stealth, because she said, well, I'm not for a living wage. People went, aha, now we know where you really stand. But in fact, most of what she said had to do with local stuff. So it was a narrative that had been carrying forth through the other almost won situations in other states that were similar to this, in the way that there were Democrats trying to take over an otherwise mostly Republican area. And so I think it made it easy for some people to say this is just another
but I mean,
example,
it got so much national press. It was on the air every day. It was like it was going to be the big defining
moment
in Congress, but it wasn't ever going to be.
But there was a lot of money in it, so
Even
that's why it got a lot
won.
of attention.